Hey y'all, happy Sunday and welcome to this week's live Q&A session. This is the portion of the show where we allow YouTube to send out notifications that we're going live. If you're watching this live Q&A on replay, please scrub ahead until this graphic disappears and the actual show begins. If you're watching live and you have any comments or questions, please go ahead and put them in the live chat. But for now, grab a beverage, sit back, and relax while the countdown timer does its thing. Then we'll get started. Hey y'all, happy Sunday. I hope everybody's doing well. What I'm laughing about is I was informed via email a couple days after the fact that last week I said happy Monday. Don't know what I was thinking, just what it's like to be me. Funny part was in the email, the fellow who emailed me said, I watched the whole thing to see if there was a reason you said that, and I couldn't find one. Well, the reason was because, what can I say? Not thinking. Oh, well, so it has been a week. I'm here to tell you what. I've got more material up on the CNC. I tell you, I have been focused on surfacing, and I've got a small slab up there that I'm getting ready to surface. And that's going to be one of the first videos I put out next month. It may or may not be the first week. Let's see. First week would be well, it might be. I won't have it up by New Year's Day, the 1st. So we're looking at probably the 8th for my first video of 2023, but that's okay. And I'm going to get into surfacing materials, showing a few different methods. I'm going to surface some plain, you can see some walnut stock up there. It's reclaimed flooring, and I'll be doing that manually. And then for that slab, uh, that's the international symbol for using my game controller. Okay, just in case you didn't know. And for that slab, I will be doing uh, a G code. I'll create a toolpath and everything, and surface that under G code. So it shouldn't be as long as I fear it's going to be, but that's only because I'm going to be getting into incremental jogging and setting heights, etc., to get a known thickness, or taking off a known amount using MDI commands, and using you know setting Z0 to various different places. Anyway, it's going to be longer than it should be, but hopefully everybody gets something out of it. What I try to do while I'm got the recorded videos on hiatus and I'm doing these live Q&As is I try to have a small segment uh, to kind of briefly go over. And this week has been such a convoluted mess, um, with things going on outside of the shop and things going on here in the shop, and having to remake a couple of projects that I uh, goofed up on after the fact. Um, I don't have a segment for you today. So basically, I'm going to open it up to your questions. And so if you have any questions at all, feel free to go ahead and throw them over here in the chat. Now, we already do have a couple of questions. Wow. Vacfink, speaking of which, thank you very much for the super chat. Um, wow. Let's go ahead and take your question right off the top. And thank you very much. I really appreciate it. Vacfink says, when I import a vector file from Adobe Illustrator into Vectric, it converts my line width into 2 vectors. Is there a format or step I can prevent this? Okay, well, now it's a vector file. Obviously, it's an AI file. And what I have, okay, let's jump over into Aspire, and I'll bring up a bitmap to trace. Let me find a bitmap first here, and I'll show you what's going on. There really isn't a lot that can be done about it. Yes. Okay, there we go. I've got that one. Let's go ahead and bring you over here into Aspire now that I have a bitmap to import. Let's That's not trace. Let's import the bitmap, and let's go into here. No, that one. Excuse me. And we'll take my pirate. That's easy. And I'm going to I always trace the bitmap at its original size. Now, bear with me for just a second. I'll go ahead and trace the bitmap, and I'm going to bring it black and white. Let's go ahead and just preview that. And we'll click apply, close that, and I will turn off the bitmap layer so we can see what's going on here. Okay, let me turn the bitmap back on for just a second. If you look at the vector image, this line here is seen as, okay, trying to figure out what's the easiest way to describe it. It is seen as, even though it's a vector file, it is seen as a series of pixels. And when you import it, you are going to get your stroke in Adobe Illustrator. These two vectors are the stroke of this line. The fill is what we are used to seeing. So what you can try to do, because no matter what vector format you import it in, it's going to take that line and it's going to basically, it's going to take the stroke of that line, and that's what it's importing. So when you get two lines here, it's eliminating the fill in between those two strokes. Does that make sense? What you can do, what you can try to do anyway, is either, well, let's see. In Adobe, I'm not very good with Adobe Illustrator at all. There is a trick that you can use with the stroke width. I am going to refer you to a gentleman by the name of Russ Tyndall. He is a whiz uh, with Adobe Illustrator. I am not good with it at all. I mean, I know just enough to get myself into trouble. So his name is Russ Tyndall. His YouTube channel is called Blue Line Wood Flags. And if you shoot him an email, I will put a link to his channel down in the description of this video just as soon as we're done live here. And if you'll shoot him an email explaining to him what's going on, I know for a fact he can square you away. Okay. Now, John is saying, can you offset one line inward, then eliminate the two original lines? You could do that. And what John is talking about here is, let me turn off the bitmap layer. Let's say we're looking at the outside perimeter here. But see, the problem with doing that, John, is what bitmap trace is for, and I know you're not tracing a bitmap, you're importing vector graphics, but it's importing two lines. So I'm trying to eliminate the need to do that, John. Yes, you could. Okay, I do and can move the stroke to outside the point, but in Vectric, the inside should be the actual size, but neither is. It's very strange. Okay, I'm not sure if Vectric does any scaling when you do that. I'm really not certain. Now, here's another question for you. I like I say, I don't know enough about Adobe Illustrator to ask this, but can you export your vectors as a different file format other than the AI file? For instance, like an EPS file. If you can export that as an EPS file, try importing that EPS and see if you get a different result. Because I know AI files, they add some proprietary information in there that may be playing games with Vectric. Um, because there is a way to, okay, Sargon says you can save it as PDF as well. Okay, yeah, okay, you can export as EPS. I don't know if that's going to make a difference or not. I just don't know if there's any proprietary information in that AI file format that may be messing with Vectric or something else running in the background. Sargon says I can, but then I'm losing the AI vectors and revectoring in Aspire. Okay. Yeah, give EPS a try and see if that makes any difference. If it, and again, link. I just wrote myself a note. I will link Russ Tyndall's YouTube channel, and if you check the About tab on his channel page, uh, it will. You can send Russ an email. I've been asking him to make a couple of videos on Adobe Illustrator for just this purpose. He has one video that he does talk a little bit about Adobe Illustrator, but he's been using it for years. And here lately, importing into, and I say lately, within the past couple of years, importing into Vectric, and he's really got that down pat. And again, I've been asking him to do a couple of videos on it. So, and I'm sorry I can't help you, especially after the super chat, but that's something I try to do is be upfront and honest. If I don't know, I just have to say I don't know. And I really need to up my game with Illustrator. So let's see. Let's see here. We've got a couple of new questions, but let me get back to some of the others. Mario Montoya wants to know, just finished installing limit switches to my new 3018 thanks to Mr. Gatton. Is there a real need for having a Z minus limit switch? No. There is no need to have a Z minus limit switch. But it also depends on the controller that you're using. Basically, your Z is going to go down until it hits your spoil board, then your table. And if you're not around to see that, that's an issue. But basically, it's having a Z negative limit switch, I think, is really ineffectual. I mean, I guess you could put one on as a safety, but the problem comes with the machine has no way of knowing how deep or how long of a bit you've put in there unless you put a tool setter in and go through all of that. So if you've got a tool that is 3 inches, well, it's a 3018. Yeah, you're not going to have a 3-inch long tool in a 3018. If you have a tool that's you have 1.5 inches of bit sticking out of the spindle, that's completely different to a bit that's a 1/2 inch sticking out of the spindle, or 2 inches, or whatever. So having that lower limit, I mean, that really is ineffectual, just my opinion. A Z positive limit switch, yes, certainly. That aids in homing. And yeah, I guess that could protect you, but uh, yeah, the minus sign. In fact, some controllers don't even have an entry for a Z minus limit switch. I mean, do you have a use for a Z minus, a negative Z limit? I mean, I can't think of one, but that doesn't mean that there isn't one. So, okay, let's see here. I hope that answers that question. Let's see. Jason Kunda says, going back to circles along vectors from last week, is there a way to center the vector within letters? Or am I limited to eyeballing it, making a 24-inch high marquee letters with light bulbs? Oh, okay. I see. Yes, there is. I get what you're saying now. Let me turn that off and go back over to Aspire, and we'll get rid of, well, I'm not going to get rid of it. I'll just copy it to a new layer and turn it off so it's not visible. Oops, did I just? Yeah, I made it. No. Oh, I copied it. I didn't move it. Yeah, dummy. Okay, there we go. Let's bring up some text here. And let's go with my old favorite, and I'll just do a giant letter M in the middle, close, and we'll bring that up. And I made it too big. That's okay. All right. Yeah, there are several ways of doing what you're asking, Jason. One is, see, using these controls over here to align is 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 kind of ineffectual in this position because, for instance, now you could line something up to the inside edges or the outside edges, but for trying to get the something aligned right, say right straight in the middle for a marquee sign, and I'm assuming you're talking about circles for light bulbs, etc. Um, that would probably have to be um, done manually, but that's where guidelines would come in handy. Because, for instance, with my letter M here, let's see if it'll do it. I believe it will. Yes, it will snap right to the center of this area between these two vectors right here. And same thing here, it'll snap to the center of those. Now, when it comes to a diagonal guideline, what we have to do is figure out the angle. So come over here to measure. And if we look here, measure between 2 points, we have angle listed here. So I'm going to click here and I'm going to click about up here and make sure that I'm on the vector. And I have an angle of 65.375 degrees. So I can't highlight that. I'm just going to have to remember 65.375 degrees. Now I'll pull, whoops, close. I'll pull a guide over here, then right click that guide. New angle, I want 65.375 degrees. Click apply, close, and now that guideline is at the same angle as this part of the of my letter M. Now here I am going to have to kind of eyeball it because there is no center span for me to go by. So I'll go ahead and hit measure, and let's go how far. I'll have to go from this corner here to this corner and stay. You see how that dotted line kind of appeared below my cursor there? That's telling me that I am even with the other portion of my letter M there. My distance is 0.8541. Okay, so what I'll want to do, let me go ahead and click on that. 0.8541. Okay, what I'll want to do is come here at about the same angle, 6.5, or no, it wasn't 0.65. There we go, about right so. And I'm at 0.3018. I'm just going to have to kind of eyeball this area in here to get this guide roughly where I want it. Now, a way to cheat on this, and I've done this for a lot of things, is to draw a circle, just kind of pull it out, put it right on one edge. Now, that circle is a little bit too big. Let's delete that and go here. This takes a lot of trial and error. Close. Drag it over here and put it right on that line. It's still a little small, so let me go ahead and click Shift, bring that down to where it's touching both sides. And now I can see my guide is not in the middle. So if I click off and come on, now when it's in move and transform, I can't get the center. I can't grab the guide rather. Not quite. It needs to move just a little bit further. Okay, well, you see what I'm going for. Let me do some. No, I can't even do that. I can't grab the guide either. All right. That's the frustrating part. Okay, now I'm over the center there. So now I can delete that circle and then use these guides to place my circles. I hope that didn't just convolute everything. But basically, you can find that center using guidelines. If it's a straight piece like this, there is always going to be, if you have geometry snapping turned on, there it is. There is a midpoint in the span. The problem is on these angled, there aren't. And it's even worse when you're talking about, okay, let's see. Draw a line perpendicular to the font's vector, then snap a guide midline. Yeah, there you go. There you go. There you go. There you go. Snap a guide midline. Yeah. Let me do that. You're absolutely right. I could do that. Thank you for that. So that was, what was it? There we go. Close. Then I can snap that. Come on. There we go. Snap it to the middle of the line. Thank you for that. Thank you very much. I'm used to using circles, but yeah, you're absolutely right. That is much easier. So taking that, let's go back over here. Nope, not measure. Let's go back over here to this side. And we will draw a line from there to there. And you see how I get that guideline when I'm running straight and parallel. That little guideline pops up. Then I can click on it. And now, close. Let's measure this angle before I do this. We'll start here and go to, come on, zoom in. Here, and that angle is 114.667. Okay. So we'll drag another guide here, right click. New angle is 114.667. And we will apply, close, and drag that guide over here to the center of that line. Perfect. Then I can delete this vector, delete this vector, then off we go. Steve has said the line does not need to be perpendicular, just span across. The midpoint is still the center. True, true. But if it's perpendicular, I mean, then you know for sure. So yeah, perfecto. Then you would take your draw your circle. I don't know. Let's say it's 1 inch, 1.0. No, it would be smaller than that. Let's go 0.75. Close and draw your first circle. Oops. 0.75 and draw your first circle. Let's say right here. Too big, but you get the point. Yes, read up to my first comment on Inkscape. Yes, Inkscape has that function, but not everybody has or knows how to use Inkscape. So yes, didn't know about the angle finder in the measure tool. There are a lot of things in this measure tool that a lot of folks don't know about. Up here, you've got measure between 2 points. It'll give you a distance. It'll give you an X distance and a Y distance. So for instance, if you click here, then you click down here. Come on, I've got too many guides here. Shut off my guides. Now that distance, that straight line distance is 11.7 inches from here to up there in the top corner. The angle is 59 degrees. The distance in X, meaning from this point to this point, straight across in X, is 5.96 inches. The distance in Y from here to here is 10.0685. And not only that, it gives you the XY coordinates of the first point that I entered and the XY coordinates of the second point that I entered. Okay. Let me close this to get rid of, and I'll get rid of this. Delete. Now I'm going to select, come on. Thank you. And go back into measure. If I come down here to span, contour, and properties and click that button, I can't select this at all because this is still a text object. So close it, then select it, right click, convert to curves. Now I can select it. It's no longer a text object. Now, if you look, what I just did was I just clicked down here. I'll do it over here. It's only going to turn one vector red, but it is selecting the entire object. Now it's telling me this line here is 9.3228 inches long. There's the start point of that line, and there's in X and Y, and there's the end point. If I click down here, it's telling me the length and position of this line right here. Again, this is a closed vector, but it's giving me that length and position on just that particular line segment. But if I look down here, it will tell me about the entire vector. My letter M has a perimeter of 92.876 inches, meaning if you measure all the way around, it's 92.876 inches. The area being covered is 43.79 square inches. So if you are calculating epoxy, this is a very handy tool. If you're trying to figure out an area that's going to be covered by epoxy, this comes in real handy. Let me close this and I'll go over to my pirate layer, shut that off. And I believe all my pirate vectors, they are grouped. So I'll just tap the letter U on my keyboard to ungroup them. Now I can select individual vectors here. And I'll come back over to my measure tool, and I'm still in span and contour properties. I'll click this area right here, and this entire vector is 1.37 square inches. I can take that measurement and put it into my calculator with a depth of, let's say, 1/8 of an inch, and I can figure out how many cubic inches that is. Then in that calculator, translate that over into how many ounces of epoxy I'll need to fill that 1/8 of an inch deep. So there is a lot of information that can be gleaned from this measurement tool. If you are into epoxy inlays and you do this type of thing, myself, I see Rob Sandstrom is out there in the chat, and I believe Shane Peters and a few other epoxy aficionados have sent a letter to Vectric support asking them if they would include a blank where we could fill in our proposed thickness and it would give us cubic inches. So for instance, if I was going to pour this area here 1/8 of an inch deep, I could in a blank down here type in 0.125 and it would tell me how many cubic inches are there. Then I could figure out how many ounces of epoxy I need on my own, because each epoxy manufacturer is a little bit different. Densities are different, and some you mix by weight versus volume, et cetera, et cetera. So if you are an epoxy inlay aficionado, by all means, please do send a letter to Vectric support asking them for that feature. um, yes, but you need to know how many cubic inches. And that's what I'm getting at. Yes, you could convert that to cubic inches. You could go in and find the formula and do the math yourself. But they've already got most of it here. If they could just add that one little blank and then add that one line, it's already halfway done for them. That's all we're asking for. So Steve Nealon over at Harm Neal Media, the man, the myth, the legend, says, how would you find the center on an S-shaped letter? That's going to take a little bit of footwork. That's going to take a little bit of footwork. I'm going to have to play with that. tell you what I'll do. I'll write a note to myself. Oh, wait a minute. I'm going to experiment. I'm going to do something I don't normally do. Okay. Let's see. Those are all separate vectors. I'm going to Control Z to take that back to a group. Let's experiment live. This may succeed. This may fail. But we're going to find out. Steve's question is, how would you find the center on an S-shaped letter? Well, let's get rid of the M, delete, and let's bring up an S. I want to try something here. This is a true type font in Times New Roman. I'm going to do a capital S and close. Let's place that down in the center. And let's make it bigger so you can see it without me zooming in and out constantly. Okay, now I'm going to go back to my text. And I don't know if this is going to work or not. I'm going to change over to single line fonts. And I'm going to see there is a Times New Roman single line font. And let's type S. And let's take this, center this, and I'm going to try to enlarge this and just more or less superimpose it over. Well, no, that's not going to work. I thought maybe I could get that vector to line up, but it's just different enough to where it won't do it. Well, you know, it was worth a shot. Let's see if one of the other fonts will do it. You see where I'm going with this. Let's see. Oh, there are too many. I'm not going to go through all this. Let me do some working on it. But other than that, it would probably take a bit of freehanding and well, no, wait. Let's do something here. Move and transform mode. Hold down Shift, or excuse me, Control Z. I should have held down Control to copy. Pull a copy over here. Trying to do this as painlessly as possible. And let's convert that to curves. And yeah, we don't want to do that. I thought maybe I could cut the nodes and take one of these curves and use that. Yeah, some freehand drawing, that's what it'll take. So, nope, that failed. All right. Let's see here. I would size the rectangle by using the resize tool on the letter first, and that will give you the horizontal and vertical axis. Yeah, I see what you mean, Rob. If it was me, I would put the box rectangle around the letter temporarily early as a guide, then find the center of that rectangle. Right. Size the way. Okay. Yes, I get what you're talking about. I get what you're talking about. Creating a series of offsets on the inside of the S will create crossing vectors that will approximate the centers along the curve. Yeah, and that's why I'm going to work on this and find a good method that does work on like a letter S, a P, a B, something like that, and get it down, and then I'll just do a video on it because it is a valid question. So how about a V-carve toolpath? Yeah, well, a V-carve toolpath wouldn't really accomplish much. I mean, it would show you where that center is, but not to the point to where you could trace it. So, and if there's a way to do it without a bunch of trying to go around through the back door, you know, then I'm going to try to do that. So, Extreme Woodworker Steve, I believe, says another thing I've asked Vectric is to include lead-ins and outs for tiling. Currently, these will only do a lead in or out on one tile. Yes. Good point. Good point. Good point. Okay. Yes, Thomas, it does, but let me show you what I'm talking about. It does run down the center. But let me show you what I'm talking about. Well, I guess you could do, well, let's experiment a little bit, okay? Not going to use a flat depth. Let's do that's pretty big, so let's use I'm not going to update just now. Let's use a 90-degree V-bit. Select, and not going to use a clearance tool. We'll just let it, oh, Mark, there. Now it's calculate. It will cut through the material. Okay, looks like I'm going to have to, I don't want to do a flat depth because that flat depth will eliminate that center cut. Let me make it smaller here. Hold on. We'll just have to zoom in. Shift. Okay. Now let's try it. Let's get rid of the flat depth. Let's go with no. Let's go with the 90-degree V-bit again. Turn off the clearance tool. Calculate. Okay. Now, there is a center line there, but let me preview it here. There's nothing there for me to follow, is what I'm getting at, you see? I go back over to 2D view to start drawing. There's nothing there. You see what I'm getting at? Now, if you're talking about machine a V-carve toolpath, Al, that really wouldn't help you, and that wouldn't help you as far as drawing it is concerned. I'll need to figure out if there's a way to find the center. Okay. That's good. See, this is why one of the reasons why I love these live Q&As, because I would have never thought of doing this. So this gives me some homework to do to see if I can find a rather simple way of finding the center of the. How about creating a model from the preview? I could create a model from the preview, but now you're into Aspire only, and the folks in VCarve can't use this. So what I need to do is I need to see if there is a way using, for instance, it was MJ Jensen creating a series of offsets on the inside will create crossing vectors that will approximate the centers. That's something I'm going to give a shot to. And I'm going to see if I can let's see, try turning on the toolpath, then going to design view. You should still be able to see the center. Well, let's go back into preview. We've got it there. Then going into design view. Yes, VCarve toolpath must calculate the center. It just does not give the result as a usable vector. Now, I'm in the 3D view here. There is I've got 2D view and 3D view, and that's it. Now I could go into the 2D view and wait a minute, go back over here, put a check mark, and that's going to draw. That might work. If that'll stay on while I'm over here. Yes, there we go. That will work. Especially now. Hey, you guys are geniuses. There we go. Freehand drawing. I want my smoothness up and I want my stabilize up. And let's bring my freehand drawing and start drawing. I can go in and kind of adjust. And there is the beginning of a center line. Okay, I'll end that there, close it, then come back over here. Shaboom, there is the beginning of a center line. Screen share. Oh my God, you guys, sorry. Let me undo that. Hold on. Okay, what I did was come out of, come back into preview and preview this toolpath, which I did. Shaboom. Select it, put a check mark over here in the box, and that turns on the toolpath. Now I come back over here to the drawing tab, go into my freehand drawing tool, turn my smoothness up, stabilize up a little bit, get in here, and I'm going to start right here. Click and drag. And whoops, I'm not following very close. I'm using a mouse, and this is not very good at all. Let go. Close that, turn off the toolpath, and there is the start of the vector. Now, obviously, I did that pretty rotten. Let's go into Node Edit, and we could edit it from there. I've never been any good at freehand drawing. Let's try it again, only not zoomed in so far this time. Check that toolpath. Go into freehand. Start right here at this intersection. Press and hold that mouse button, and just kind of drag that vector around here. And again, I'm pretty rotten with freehand drawing, and especially with a mouse. But it's going to get me fairly close. Go back over, turn off the toolpath, and there is the beginning of that center line. Phew, man. Can you play with material thickness so you only have one tool pass in VCarve? Yeah, you can, but there's no need. There's really no need. So did you see what, thank you for the suggestions to Mark Bachman and Steve and Russell and Thomas for leading me down that path. I'm going to play with that a lot more, but that's a start. Wow. Yeah. There's a start anyway. Again, I'm not very good at freehanding. Using a tablet would probably be a heck of a lot better, but that's the start of a center line that could get you going anyway. So let's go ahead and come back over here as we have another question. Well, we have several questions. Yeah, it looks like we need to send another category of letters to Vectric. Center of font tool. Yeah, that would be that. Yeah, excellent idea. Steve wants to know, can you place an array of circles along a vector? Yes, you can. And let me go back over here into Aspire, and we'll use this as an example. Back over, and I'm going to draw let's go with a 1/4 inch circle, 0.25, and I'll put one right there. Close. Now I'm going to have to select all of this and make it larger. Otherwise, my 1/4 inch circle is going to be way too small. Yeah, let's do that. Okay, and then I'll move my circle over here out of the way. So what I'll do is I'll select the circle, then come over here to this icon, copy along a vector. Copy the first object along the remaining vectors. So I've got my circle selected. I'll click on that icon, come over here, hold down Shift, select the vector. Now what I need to know is how many of these do I want along that vector? Let's go with 6. Okay. Copy the object. Boom. And it spaces them evenly along that vector. Let's take, close, let's select all of this, move to layer, new layer, and I'll turn off the visibility. Okay. And we'll draw a larger circle. Close. Yeah, I should have just done it based on that, but that's all right. Let's take this vector. Oops. Take my small circle right here, copy the object, hold down Shift around this vector, number of copies, 12, copy. For those of you paying attention, I just marked the hours on a clock. So that's a starting point from there. You can make a clock face using that, and you see how long it took me to do that. And in fact, just so I'm not playing around with other vectors, there's the center hub for the clock movement. See, JJ says, I've seen others use tapered ball mill on V-carve projects. What are your thoughts on that? It depends on what you are doing. It does work. If it depends on what the project is. If it's a large piece, for instance, that big letter M, and it's going to be seen from a distance, it's not super important that those corners be perfectly square, then yeah, you can get away with it. If you are doing a V carving for an inlay, let's say, I have seen some people use them for that. If you watch MTM Wood with his inlaid cutting boards, if you watch Browin Wood, they both use tapered ball noses for their inlays. And I've heard from a few people this is not a good idea because of that radius. The thing about it is the depth of the female portion of the inlay, you're leaving a gap down there in the bottom that for a glue space, for excess glue to run down in. So that radius at the bottom doesn't really matter. When it comes to the corners, there could be an issue depending upon which inlay it is. But I've seen it done. But then again, if you look at the bits that they're using, for instance, I have a tapered ball nose that is a 1/4 millimeter diameter tip. It's almost a needle point. I would challenge anybody to tell me the difference between that and the needle tip on a 60, 30, or even a 15-degree V-bit. So I have seen it done. It's just, I don't have an issue with it. And if it works, it works. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. And you'll soon find out. Let's see here. Tim Belt wants to know, is there a way to limit the fonts Aspire sees? Short answer, no. Um, Example, not all fonts are good for CNC work. Is there a way to hide those to simply choosing fonts for a project? No, there is not. Aspire, VCarve, Cut 2D, all of them will list every font that's installed on your computer. And there really isn't anything you can do to change that. Now, let me look at something here real quick before I say something wrong here. Go to TrueType fonts. No. Now, what you can do is when you click in your text window here and you click on the font selection, it's going to show you the last 5 fonts you selected. Okay. Now, close this. We can get up here into options and get into this here. And here is your recent font list size. You can change this number so that it, for instance, I just clicked in here, my cursor starts flashing. I'll go 20. So the last 20 fonts I use will now appear in this font list. That's a way of putting the fonts you use regularly up on top, but it doesn't keep them in alphabetical order. It just keeps them in the order in which you use them in. But there isn't any way of telling VCarve or Aspire not to show certain fonts or not show certain fonts. It's going to list every font you have installed on your computer. And that's one of the problems that I have. I think I have over 1,400 fonts, but I didn't go in and download 1,400 fonts. Software I installed, like if you install, for instance, Adobe Illustrator, any fonts that came with Adobe Illustrator that are TrueType fonts are going to be listed in Aspire. If you installed Inkscape or Photoshop or you name it, any software at all that has fonts, even if it's just a font that's used in its interface, for you to be able to read it on the computer, that font has to be installed on your computer. And that's part of that software installation process. That font is visible in Aspire, whether you're going to use it or not. So, okay, Tim says he can live without workaround. All right. Okay. Let's see here. We have one last question, then I need to wrap it up. And I saved this one for last, Larry, basically because the answer is going to be short. I have never had a custom CNC built. I have built 2 of them, but I've never had one built. If you need a specific size or you need something built in, if it were me, I would talk to some of the reputable manufacturers out there. If they are capable of doing it, some of them may take on that type of a proposition where they're building you let's say, a 5 by 10 machine. Having said that, there are several out there, manufacturers out there that already make a 5 by 10. And for instance, Avid CNC, they start with a 4 foot wide by 2 foot deep, 4 foot in X, 2 foot in Y, and they are expandable as long as you want to go in 8 foot, 4 foot and 8 foot segments. So as far as that is concerned, um, if it depends, okay. Oh, I asked the wrong question. Should have been bit. A custom CNC bit. Oh, that's a little bit different. That's a little bit different. There are bit manufacturers out there. Let's see. I've not had a custom bit made. What I would do to start with is I would look in your area for tool makers or tool sharpeners, tool grinders, and see if they can lead you in the right direction. Um, Now, this is not for CNC, but I have a friend, a mutual friend of Steve Neal in there, Harneal Media, and I, who lives in Massachusetts. He runs a business called the Country Bed Shop, and um, he does custom beds, museum quality reproductions, and he restores antiques all the way back into the federal period. We're talking the 1700s. And he's in a very small town in Massachusetts, and he has a local tool maker that makes him, for instance, taps and dies, because some of the hardware used on these antique beds were not standard size. And he's got taps and dies of all kinds of sizes, diameters, thread pitches, thread counts. I mean, you name it. Uh, I see a few people are talking here in the chat. Vortex Tool does custom bits. Wade says Orbit Tool Works made me 2 custom bits for a router table. Another, I know a gentleman in Colorado who had get ready for it, 3-inch diameter ball nose bit made for his CNC. And it basically looks like a core box bit or a bowl bit, but it's got a 1/2 inch shank and then a 3-inch diameter head on it. And he uses that for sculpting wall panels on HDU foam. I would do a Google search for uh, custom router bit grinding or custom router bit manufacturing. You've got a couple of places to look. Vortex is a little bit pricey, even on their standard bits, uh, but you would be hard pressed to beat their quality. They're very, very good quality bits. I've not worked with Orbit Tool. I've not used any of their tools, so I don't know. And Wade is 100% right. I have always believed that the letter S in the word custom should be a $sign, because you are going to pay. Okay. But also go ahead and reach out to your other bit manufacturers and see, would they consider a custom grind or custom bit? If you need something crazy, there we go. Dimensions in Tooling does custom tooling. So there's a few. Blake, were you telling me about Little Bit? Is that a thing or was that a joke? Let's see. Yeah, what I want would be a time saver for sure. And I know time is money. You know, that gives you a whole bunch. Let's see. Vortex is, yes, very much. Whiteside will take your money, recommend them, but their MOQ is 5 bits. Okay. Okay. Alrighty. I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. We're a little bit over, but that's okay. Next week will be another live Q&A. I will do a little bit of work on this, finding the center of a like of a letter S or something like that. I may or may not have an answer for you next week, but I definitely got it on the list of how to do of a video to do because yeah, I do want to get that figured out. So because it's one of those things I may never use it, but it's bugging the stuffings out of me, and I need to know. So we welcomed a new channel member earlier this morning by the name of, let's find him. Come on, way up here. Randy Hagar. Thank you for becoming a channel member. I really do appreciate it. All you other channel members, remember live stream, members only live stream tomorrow. I have a super secret special guest coming on board tomorrow who has a project that he did. If it doesn't blow you away the same way it blew me away, I will be disappointed in all y'all. So channel members tomorrow, 5:30 Pacific, uh, 8:30 Eastern. Had to do the math. And thank you to my better half for reminding me that next Sunday is V Christmas, so there will be no live stream next week. But so I hope you all have a very good Christmas. That means I'll be on vacation. I can get some work done. Great day in the morning. Okay, but there will be a members only live stream um, next Monday as well as tomorrow. If you would like information on how to become a channel member, just click that little join button right next to the subscribe button. A panel will pop up, a video will play to tell you all about channel membership. We have a good bunch of folks that come into the members only live streams, have a lot of fun. Tomorrow, I cannot wait for. That is evidence that yes, some very cool stuff happens on these members only live streams. And for everybody else, have a great Merry Christmas, a happy Christmas to you folks across the pond. Remember the reason for this season. Let's be nice to one another and y'all go out and make some chips. Do something cool. We've got a week, 7 days. The countdown is on. The pressure is on. Now you know why this is a mess. Hang in there, brothers. We're getting close. See y'all in 2 weeks. Y'all take care.